Hello everyone, Chaos Creator here, and welcome to a quick tutorial for the Simple Storage Network mod. The first part of this video, we're actually going to cover the most basic setup to use this, which is basically from here up. But throughout this entire setup, I've actually used every single item in the mod, except for the ones in my hotbar, which we'll be covering as well. So we're going to cover the entire mod, but first we're going to start with the most simple setup, what most people will probably want the mod for. And that is a setup like this, where all of your items are accessible from a single terminal. There is also the this terminal, which basically functions the same way, but it doesn't have the crafting grid. Most people probably won't use this one, but that is the one item that actually was not included. So all of the items from these storage drawers, which is a different mod, as well as all of these chests are all available right here. And you can even craft with them super easily. Like if I want to make some oak logs, I can actually click JEI over here, click plus, and pull the logs out. If I want to make a chest, you can hit the X to clear the grid. I can make chests, but then I can just keep pulling out so long as I have the wood for it. It's really useful for more complicated crafts where, there's a bunch of individual items and you can just pull straight from here. To set up the heart of the system is this. Every setup needs one of these. It's not too expensive. You do have to go to the nether first though for the quartz. And then you will need either the request table or the other one that we showed, which was the storage inventory to access the items. You'll need cables to connect everything, but then to connect inventories, you're going to need a simple cable or a storage link cable. The simple cables are the cheaper ones. They have no interface, but they will connect a single inventory, included modern inventories like this iron chest. The colossal chest mod works. Any kind of inventory will work. And then all of these inventories are now connected to the system. And anytime you throw items into the system, they'll end up in these chests. Every time you pull them out, it'll pull them out of these chests. So it's not digital storage like AE2 or refined storage. You still need like the physical chests in the world, but you can access them all together. Then there is the storage link cable. This one does have an interface. You can whitelist or blacklist which items are going into here. If you have the ignore list with nothing in it, that means everything can. You can also set it so that it's only pulling, that the system can only pull from these chests or only input into the. Oh no, so it's actually, you can set it to only output or input and output. I can't think of a reason to do that, but you can do it. And then you can also set the priority, smaller going first. So I have this set to -5, so that the storage drawers are always prioritized first. By the way, the drawer controller just links all of the drawers, so you can use a single cable for all the drawers if you have one of these. I also have the drawers locked. That's part of the storage drawers mod, but that just means that if I pull all of one of these items out, nothing else can go into those spots. And so that is the most basic setup for this. This gives you a really convenient setup for crafting and just storage. You don't have to do any organizing. You can just throw it all into here. You can hook up any kind of inventory. And yeah, you can also decide how you sort it. I personally sort by amount, with the largest up and the smallest down. That's how like AE2 does it by default. You can also make it so that the search is synced with your JEI search. I typically don't have it on, but that's another option. But now we're going to get into the more complicated parts of the mod, starting with importing and exporting, which we actually have a setup back here. Well, we're using a forestry. I'm not going to pretend to pronounce that, but it's a tree farm. First of all, though, we need to power. So we have this peat-fired engine. You could technically import this too. I just didn't bother with it. I have an export cable here, which is going to export stuff from the system into whatever inventory it is connected to. And this has to be filtered. You can't just have it export everything from the system. You can also prioritize this. So if you have like multiple things exporting peat, like which one gets the peat first, you can set up. And so then that is just constantly keeping this stocked with peat to then, so this is constantly producing energy. And then this, I just broke a very important cable. That was supposed to be importing saplings and fertilizer. So by the way, well, exporting, I mean, you always think of it based on the system. So this is exporting from the system, not from the block. This is importing to the system, not from this block. So we're exporting from the system up here, saplings and fertilizer to go into here because this farm needs them to run. And then over here, we have the items that this farm is producing on the importer so that it's pulling them out from here and into the system. I also have the upgrades here. The stack upgrade is going to increase the size of the stack of items being pulled out. It by default is 4. With a stack upgrade, I believe it goes to 16, maybe 32. I'm pretty sure 16. And then the speed upgrades control how frequently these items get pulled out. Now, in a setup where you're inputting a lot of different items, I recommend a single stack upgrade and then 3 speed upgrades for best performance. If you're getting a lot of the same item, I would do 2 stack upgrades and 2 speed upgrades for the best performance. And then that is pulling those just straight into the system. And so now I actually have storage drawers for these. So it's going into there, and then it's all accessible here. I also am getting the apples. I don't have a drawer for those, so those are just going somewhere into the chests. So that's the basics of the import and export cable. They're really good for, the export cables are really good for providing like fuel or just items needed by like different farms and stuff. And the import cable is really good at pulling things in from farms, a mob farm, stuff like that. Now, a little bit more complicated of a cable is the processing cable. For the processing cable, you will also need a controller. The controller is where you'll see all of the tasks that your processing cables can do. And this one we have it set up to the input is sand and the export is glass. You also have to set up what side of the block they're being imported to. With a vanilla furnace, the top is going to go into this slot and the bottom is going to pull from this slot. So we'll have this set to up because that's where the sand needs to go into, and that's set to down because that's where the glass can be pulled out of. Now, by default, this is actually set up like this. So it's actually just going to constantly turn any sand in the system into glass, which typically isn't what you want. For some things like ores, it is, but you can also use import-export for those. But so typically I have this set up like this. And then whenever I say want a piece of sand, I can do that. I can just put that up and it will now put a piece of sand into the furnace and smelt it. You can also shift click to do an entire stack at once. And so then it still does them one by one, I'm pretty sure. But now it'll do an entire stack. And this number will slowly come down as the sand is imported into the system. This export cable here is just providing coal into the furnace, but this one, unlike the others, has a stock upgrade. This makes it so that you can actually set a specific amount of items that is going to be kept here. So I have it set to 32. So there's only 32 coal in the system. You could also set that to be like, you could also set it to be like 16. And this way you don't have like all of your coal going into furnaces and you still have access to some in your network. Now, with the processing cable, it actually works by just putting the item in here and then expecting the item to be returned to whatever inventory that is. For a chest, it doesn't matter the size. So if you have other mods that can process items, you can set it up so that this is both the import and the export, and you can have any amount of machines in between here and there. So if you were to have like, thermal expansion, you might have a setup where you have a, this chest goes into a grinder. I can't think of what they're called suddenly, which is going to like say crush the ore into 2 bits, and then an electric furnace, which will smelt them. And then you'll say maybe use some item pipes and put it back into here. And then that'll still work. You can have, no matter how complicated the machinery is, you can set it up so that so long as the import and the export come out to the same block, which you could do with like item pipes and stuff, you can do whatever, and just set up what the input is and what the output is, and then it'll always be, and then it'll show up here and you can process it. Unfortunately, I don't have enough mods installed to actually do anything like cool to show you guys with that, but if you have any other mods that you have like complicated processing with, you can still do it. So some of the last thing to show you are some of the stuff in my inventory. First of all, this operation upgrade. It's not super useful, at least in any instance I found. It basically will turn off whatever you're doing based on the number of items. So you can say, it could honestly work as a replacement for the stock upgrade. So say active if more than, oh wait, no, this is based on in the network. So say I only want to export coal into here if I already have 64 coal in the network. So now no coal's going in here because I only have 63 coal. But if I put coal in here, it'll start exporting coal again. That's something you probably won't use a lot of, but it is an option in there if you want it. The last of the stuff is in my inventory, and it is mostly remotes. So all these have to be linked to the setup. You can just shift click the network master to link them. The basic storage remote has a 64 block range, so you can't go very far away. But it is fairly cheap. You could probably make this not long after you make the original one. And it's pretty good for like using around your base and accessing the network. And it works the exact same way that this does. The advanced storage remote, which is a little bit more expensive, and by a little I mean a lot. Oh wait, I actually flipped these two. The upgraded one has an unlimited distance. It's decently more expensive, but still pretty manageable. And this one can actually access it from anywhere in the overworld. Which is really convenient. Then the advanced, and also if you're on a server, these might be disabled. The advanced storage remote is the same thing, but this one actually works interdimensionally, so you can even be like in a different dimension, and this one works, which is pretty powerful. Then the simple storage remote is not too expensive. This one doesn't have the crafting grid, but this one works unlimited distance, but not interdimensionally. Then there's the network picker and the network collector remote. The picker one allows you to click on a block and export the block of the same type from the system up to a stack at a time. So see there, it only did 35 because that was all I had left in the system. This would probably be really useful if you were building and you ran out of a certain building block. You could pull it. And then the collector remote actually well in your inventory at all. I don't even think it needs to be in your hotbar. Any items you pick up actually just go immediately into the system. So notice nothing's going into my inventory, it's going into the system. This one could be useful for certain instances, like mining especially, but in other instances it could actually probably be pretty annoying. But if you also have a remote, it wouldn't be too bad. But yeah, that is actually every single item added by this mod covered. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I was mostly making this for the Mesozoic SMP members, because we're gonna have this mod in there. But nice and up and close and personal. But thank you all for watching. Bye.